Hi, this is Jeff and welcome to Tropical Plants at 53 degrees north, and today we're going to talk about Pelargoniums, and in particular we're going to do some root prunings of Pelargoniums. And if you're not quite sure what a Pelargonium is, think Geranium. I'll explain that in a little bit. So I'm sorry for the Mars Hydro TS1 1000 there above my head. Gives me quite a look at that. There you go. I always knew I had a halo. Okay, so what we'll do is let's try and get rid of that. There we go. I will take you over to the workbench over there and we'll have a look at what we're going to do today. So I'll just turn you around, so just look at my hand. And we're back. Okay, so over on the workbench here I've got a couple of Pelargoniums. Now I've grown Pelargoniums for years. The first thing to tell you about them is that they used to be called Geraniums, and that was incorrect. Apparently what happened is the people who brought them over to the UK from Europe and the various places that they come from, I think they originate in South Africa, but I might be wrong. You'll have to fact check me on that. But they looked at them and they thought that the leaves have quite a resemblance to the native hardy geranium that we grow in our country. The hardy geranium, you see them in lots of people's gardens, and they thought this kind of scalloped leaf looked very similar, so they thought that they were part of the geranium family, but in actual fact they're not. They're their own group called the Pelargonium. Now the thing about the Pelargoniums is that you could go to any nursery in the country, any garden centre in the country, and they will still be labelled, despite it being wrong, they'll still be labelled as geraniums. I guess the nurseries and the garden centres are frightened that people will come in and not recognise the name and not buy them. But I've been calling them Pelargoniums since I found that out, so it's been a number of years, so that's what they are. Now I've got a number of Pelargoniums. I'll quickly show you them. There's that one down there. And it's not really very exciting to look at because at this time of year not very many of them are in flower. That one there, they're not really the same, these. There's that one there. That one has just brought a flower out. I didn't have the courage to cut it off because it does look nice. When it was probably May onwards in the greenhouse, these Pelargoniums looked stunning. They really did create a complete lovely display that it was like a show-stopping display really. People would come in and the first thing they would comment on would be the Pelargoniums. And what you do when it comes round to autumn time is you cut them right back. You don't make the mistake that I did. This one down here, this one, it was a trailing one. Well, they just slug pellets in the top there. And what I did it all in a rush as usual, and I didn't check to see that there were buds at the bottom when I cut it. I don't think this is going to survive. When I peel away, this is a little test here actually to see if you want to know if anything's alive. Just give it a scrape with your nail, and if it looks green, can't quite see there because I'm trying to hold the camera. If it looks green, then you know it's still alive. If it's not, well, there you go. Bad news for me, unfortunately. Last time I checked that it was. It's very, very black. That is well and truly gone, which is such a shame because it was a great trailing Pelargonium. But it's my own fault for doing it in a rush. The rest of them I did correctly, and what I did was I cut them right down and I made sure that there was still some leaves at the bottom where I cut them so that they've re-sprouted. Now this is just a month's growth. This it's actually elongating here because it's under the benches down there in the shade. I'm just trying to keep it out of the way. I'm trying to give them a bit of a rest really, but all the others have come back fine. One of the biggest things for me, or biggest tips for me, is to not be frightened of taking off the yellowing leaves. Pelargoniums they fall really easily, fall victim to botrytis. and you can just see on that one now, as soon as the leaves go yellow, they start to get the fungus at the end. So I don't think that has got it. That's just dying off. I've done so well with keeping botrytis off these plants, but don't be frightened of anything that's yellowing. Any leaves, if you leave them on, then they soon spread through the plant, and you will think that you're completely defoliating a plant, and it will come back with vigour once you open it up, because they're so prone to this botrytis. I can't see anything on that. I think it's just a yellowing leaf. They're evergreen, but they do lose the leaves, and you've got to make sure that you're vigilant with any of these, especially these underneath go yellow quite easily. But mine are doing really well. Once I defoliated them all, about a month ago, they've really come back strongly, and they're looking very healthy. So I'm looking forward to a good display next year. Now, the reason I've got them down here is because I made a mistake. Now, even though I've been growing them for many years, I've always kept them small, not for any particular reason other than I just didn't get round to repotting them. And many shrubs and herbaceous perennials in England, in the UK, or in any temperate climate, they usually benefit from potting them on into a bigger pot, because the natural instinct is to think to yourself, well, a small plant looks nice, so a bigger plant will look even better and it will get more flowers on it. Not so with Pelargoniums, as I found to my cost. What I've done here, this is a nice size of a plant. That will give me a nice, it's probably about as big as they go actually. That will give me a nice display of blooms. It will cover the whole plant and it will look really good. This is the mistake I made. This one, I potted it up probably about this time last year into this big pot. Now that one is about, well, I know for a fact, I just bought this one. This one is a 5.5 inch pot. So that comparison there, that's probably, I don't know, about 8 inch pot. But you can see it is significantly bigger underneath there. It's certainly got a much bigger capacity. And what happened with it, it did exactly what I was warned it would do. I was warned afterwards, in fact, once I'd already done it. It put a load of growth on. It actually ended up like this kind of size. It was about, I don't know, a foot across, a foot tall, lots and lots of leaves. And by the time it got round to producing flowers, it was already late August when it produced just 2 flower spikes, and both flower spikes never actually got round to coming out because it was so wet they just rotted off. So this one, I was waiting for the spectacular display because it's big, and nothing. So the lesson to learn there is with Pelargoniums, smaller is better. We're looking at this kind of size maximum. Even better size are these ones down here. And these ones down here gave me really good displays. That's probably, I don't know, about a 6 inch, 5 inch pot again. So I thought to myself, what can I do about this? I'll just get this one out of the way because I'm not going to use this one anymore. And what I actually did was, as we all do, first port of call, internet. So I got on the internet and YouTube, as it happens, which is very good for how-to videos in case you didn't know. And there's a channel I follow. There's a guy called David Taylor, I think his name is, and he goes by the moniker of Mr. Pelargonium. So if you have a look at his channel, what I'll do, I'll either stick a card up at the top of the video or I'll put a link in the description to his channel. He solely focuses on Pelargoniums, and he has a small greenhouse and he shows them. He takes them to shows. I believe he's been a nurseryman in the past, so what he doesn't know about Pelargoniums isn't really worth knowing. And his entire greenhouse is just full of Pelargoniums. He specialises in them. And what he says about this kind of thing is that you can actually rejuvenate a plant like this, which is put in a pot that's too big, and you can do it by root pruning. So I'm going to have a go at root pruning today. And what that involves is, exactly as it sounds, unpotting it washing a lot of the media off, the soil off, or knocking it off if you can, and then pruning away the roots and pruning them to such a degree that you can get it in a smaller pot. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to defoliate some of it. Some of these long ones, which are clearly searching for the light, I'm going to get rid of those. I'm going to take it right back, being very careful this time to make sure that I leave some of these newer shoots on down here so that it doesn't completely die off on me like the trailing one did. If you didn't know, and there's something just popped into my head now, that you can get these in all sorts of colours. You can get scented leaved ones, you can get variegated leaf ones. There's such a massive variety. They're definitely worth having a look at Pelargoniums, and at some point I'll do a video on the various types. I don't have enough of them. I would like some more of them because they seem to do really well for me in my particular area, in my climate, especially in a greenhouse. They did fabulously well last year. I'll see if I can dig out a photo and stick it up on screen and make another job for myself. But I'm sure I've got some photos of what they look like. They did look really good at the beginning of the year. So that's what I'm going to do now. The potting mix that I'm going to put them in, I've got some vermiculite down here. There's not a great deal left in there. I've got a Geranium number 2. I don't know if you can see that upside down, which is a potting compost. And I have got, I think it's a Jack's one. And I've got some horticultural grit down there, just to keep it nice and open. Because they're like Mediterranean slash, I suppose that you could call them tropical plants. I think they're probably not quite tropical. They're not really keen on humidity. They prefer to be definitely on the dry side. They don't really like it over the winter when the greenhouse is quite humid. So those two things play against each other because they need the humidity for the carnivorous plants and the orchids, but not so much for these. But they cope. They manage to get through, have it well ventilated, or certainly well, the air's moving about, well fanned, as it were. Oh, and by the way, my new suspended heater has just clicked on, doing its job up here. It seems to be really good up here. It seems to warm it up very quickly, much better than it did when it was below on the floor. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a go at that. I'll film it, I'll do it on a time lapse. Let's see if we can manage to get it in this pot and rejuvenate it, and then in a couple of weeks' time we'll come back to it and see if we've managed to, do what I wanted to do with it in the first place. And then I'll make a diary note and let's see if we get some good blooms on it this year, and not just 2 failed miserable spikes. Okay, so I shall hand you over to the capable hands of the time-lapse person, which is also me. So this one is a variegated geranium, and you can see it has these like blue markings on the leaves. You can't see them as well. You can see them better in the summer, but they seem to be fading at this time of year. And these lovely red flowers on them. Put that to one side. So that was nice and easy. Got that off in one go. Now I've got to try and somehow cut this down. It's quite dry, and that was another thing to make sure that you do, that when you do this you don't do it with wet media, do it with the dry media. And the plan is to really cut this down so that we can get it in the smaller pot. So what I'll do is I'll bring the other pot up. It's actually quite easy. It's coming away nice and easy. So we've got the other pot there just out of camera shot. The roots are quite fibrous. I'm hoping this is not going to be that tricky a job, and in fact, I know Mr. Pelargonium recommends that if you have any trouble that you wash the roots to get all the media off, but I don't think I'm going to need it. Yeah, nice bit of drainage for the hole in the bottom there. If it fits, might have to cut that up. Good exercise for your thumbs, this. I decided not to do time lapse because it's not taking that long. So I don't think I'm going to need much in the way of new media actually. But it's there ready. You can see already how much I've managed to get the root ball down. I wouldn't have liked to have done this with wet media. Now he took his really small, but I don't think I'm going to need to do that. I think it's going to go in quite easily when I've finished with it. Let's have a little test, see what that's like. There's the pot. Look at that. Perfect. Just take a little bit off the height of it. It's just a little bit too tall yet. I don't think I can get any off there. So I'm going to have to take it off the bottom. I mean, you wouldn't think they'd survive this. It's like somebody chopping your legs down a bit. Before anybody says, yeah, I know my legs could do with chopping down a bit. It does have its advantages being tall. It does mean you can reach things. Right, so, ta-da. Oops, there we go. Perfect, perfect. So, that will do. So, just get this soil out of the way. Right, that'll do for now. Just remove the label. Great value that, £1.59 for a terracotta pot. I don't know why anybody uses any other kind of pots. Love terracotta. And of course they all look the same. Oh, there you go. So that's to cover the hole, because they do like to be drained at the bottom there. Can't quite see that. So what my job is now is to get this in there. It's a little bit sitting a little bit down, so what I'm going to do is probably take some of these off first so I can see a little bit more, see what I'm doing. I'm going to take some of these longer leaves off. Actually, it might be better just pulling them off. They do, if you can get them at the heel, they come off quite easily. Yeah, so we're just going to go for the longer ones because they're not as healthy. They're obviously searching for the light, and they're not getting it down there. It may be that I need to give it a little bit more light. I was just trying to keep it out of the way. I mean, when I did put it under the bench, it didn't have any leaves on it, other than a few little nubbins coming on there. Take some of the older ones off. The younger leaves are tougher in as much as the survival rate's a lot better. Like humans really, isn't it? Younger you are, everything works well when you're young. It all falls to pieces once you're at 35. So I believe. If you believe that, you believe anything. That's looking better already. And don't be worried about doing this. This is something that I learned from Mr. Pelargonium as well. They're quite tough plants, and they don't mind. They actually benefit from taking the leaves off and giving more air movement, because they just have this tendency, and I suppose it's been bred into them somehow because they're all hybrids. They have this tendency to just put so much leaf on, and it's to their own detriment because they catch all sorts of, well, mainly botrytis really, which is like a fungal disease. So that's looking a bit better. I'm sorry the camera angle's not that good. I really must get a better tripod than this pile of junk that I'm using at the moment. Right, okay. I'll probably take a few more of those off at some point, but for now, that will do. So I'm going to get a few little bits and bobs in terms of media, mix it up. I'm not going to need so much because there's only a little bit around the edge of the pot, really, a little bit at the bottom. So I'll just put a little bit down there. I'll have to do some vermiculite. Went to the garden centre today and I completely forgot to get any vermiculite. Got everything else, no vermiculite. I'm going to put a little bit of grit in it. Put a bit of grit towards the bottom because I do like to be well drained. I'll just get a trowel full of John Innes, mix it all up. I don't know if you can see that now, it's just off camera, isn't it? Apologies. I shall definitely have to work on my camera angles, won't I? Amongst all the other things. Right, let's get that in a position you can see it. There we go. So, a little bit too high. I'm going to take a little bit out. I want it just below the rim, because if you get it too high and you water it and then the water just runs over the edge, just have to be a little tiny bit, and then you simply fill in around the edge. Not a great deal to it really, it's not rocket science, but I think people like to look at plants, don't they? I know I do. And I've heard people talk about the mental health aspect of it, and I totally 100% agree. I think I like nothing better than being amongst plants. Okay, so the thing with terracotta though, you can't see down the side of the pot, so you don't always know that you've got the media right down the side, and it can like fill the top, and then there can be big holes down the side. How do I know this when I can't see it? Well, when you go and actually eventually unpot it, then you can see where there's been like a big air gap. Okay. Another good way of doing it, of course, because it isn't bark, it does kind of work its way down, is to water it. Give it a tap all round, that's another way of doing it. And then hope for the best. Well, I think you can see already it's looking a better size pot, better size plant. Right, so only job to do is to label it. There we go. In fact, I'm going to write on that label when I've repotted it, and then I'm going to give it a water. Just pick you up again. And I'm going to give it a water, and then job done. So we've gone from that huge pot, that to that. We've done the exact opposite of what us gardeners are used to doing, and we've made it smaller, and hopefully this will rejuvenate it, and we'll look forward to a better show, or any kind of show I'll be happy with next year. I might take a few more leaves off it yet, but being careful to leave some new ones on it there. Well, you can see how some of these have really elongated. I'm trying to think of the word, what that happens when they're looking for the light. There is a word for that. And I can't think of it off the top of my head. I'll think of it as soon as I turn the camera off, guarantee you. Okay, so that's it. That's how to unpot a Pelargonium and rejuvenate it, ready for next year, and to make sure that it comes back nice and strongly and gives you a wonderful show during spring and summer of the following year. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, you know the drill, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.